it's not fair.
No, it's not. And how technologically advanced, Carmen, do you think they were?
Well, there's a picture also up on the website there where I'm showing you the Pleiades, the Belt of Orion, and Sirius, and how they line up along the celestial Nile. And the old riverbed used to run right there, and I didn't superimpose it on a map of the pyramids, but it does line up with the Giza pyramids, the Great Pyramid, the Second Pyramid, and the Third Pyramid, the Abu Sir, which is connected to the Pleiades, and Abu Raush to the north of the Giza Plateau, which is connected to Sirius, and the whole configuration aligned with the Milky Way, which used to parallel where the Nile was. Now it's migrated 8 miles to the east. This configuration, if you go into Starry Night Pro, follows back and forth and all the way around. I ran it up to 40,000 BC and up to 20,000 AD, and this configuration holds strong all the way through. But what's happening with 2012 is the whole thing is lining up with the center of the galaxy. Now, when I saw it in Starry Night, my heart skipped a beat, and I'm like, oh, it's obvious. Of course they knew. But how? They were pretty darn sophisticated. They understood string theory. They understood this mitochondrial DNA. They were very sophisticated in terms of their sky-ground correlation, and what they were mapping in the most durable of stonework for us to see now and go, oh, and everything we've been looking at about them before, we haven't understood. And so, we've infantilized them and made them obsessed with death and animals and stuff like that because we don't know how to position them in terms of the extreme sophistication of their consciousness, of their energy, of their ability to move between dimensional spheres. It's incredible.
Tell me about your thoughts of Abydos. I constantly think of that tablet that looks like, to me, flying craft, submarines, a ship. The one I'm talking about?
Oh, definitely. The most interesting thing about that lintel is that it was covered for the bulk of ancient Egypt, or the dynastic Egypt, which started parallel to the Mayan calendar, 3113 BC in 2012. But so dynastic Egypt was already patriarchal, and it was already deteriorated from the high level of technology and that sort of thing. But there was a piece of stone covering that. And 20 years or so ago, it just fell right off, and then that was what was underneath. And there's been a lot of double talk to try to explain it away in terms of hieroglyphic, but you're not going to find that. And there's a lot of anomalies in the hieroglyphs as well that are telling a different story. And so I think that it's extremely old. Now, if you look at Abydos at the Osirian, it is 30 feet below the Temple to Seti. Now, I think at certain times in the New Kingdom, particularly in the 18th dynasty and in the reign of Seti I, in the 19th dynasty, they were remembering times past and bringing into their consciousness a higher level. That doesn't mean that everyone was in that level, but they were remembering information from a golden age. Now, one of the things that particularly absolutely flabbergasted me this time, because I've been to Abydos several times, when we went out back to go into the Osirian, it's usually full of water. And for the first time ever, George, I saw that the water level was such that you could actually go in and walk on the floor. So, of course, it was barricaded off. And I went walking up to the stairs where you look down and you can see where the flower of life, there were 2 flowers of life that you could see between the pillars. And there's been a big deal's been made out of that. So the watchman came up to me and looked me right in the eye and said, "Do you want to go down there?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, 2 minutes." So I went down there with my camera and walked on the floor in the Osirian. Now, deeper is always older. So if you look at photographs of the stone, the megalithic stones of the Osirian are like the Valley Temple, and they're like Stonehenge. And there's a water table underneath all of them because the magnetic resonance that works with the temples works with the big stones, the granite structure, and the water. And so This used to be, in the ancient of ancient times, the place where people gathered at special times, solstice, equinox, that sort of thing. And so, pardon?
I was going to say it somehow echoes some of the thoughts of the Mayans.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then later, smaller construction, higher construction, which gives you just some indication in geological time how much older the Assyrian is. And so when I walked on the floor, of course, I went straight to see where the flowers of life are. And usually there's a shadow from the sun that will block off any other view. And I went down there, and it's not that easy to see them. They're a little bit pale because of the light, and it's in a shadow. But there were 8 flowers of life on one pillar where we used to only see 2. And I turned around, and there are 10 more on the other side. 18 flowers of life in the Assyrian. I don't think you've ever heard that, have you?
No.
And the photographs are up on your site right now.
You know, I had Zahi on about a year ago, Carmen. I talked to him about Abydos, and I want to talk to you about those objects for a few minutes before the break. And he talked like he didn't even know what I was talking about. I got to believe he knows what this whole area is like.
Well,
doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's a lot that doesn't make sense. It's hard for us to understand. Like Andrew Collins, has YouTube images of inside the network of passageways underneath the plateau. Zahi completely ignores it and says it's not there. So he definitely is focused on what he's focused on. We've all seen that anything that's outside that realm, he can't compute it, doesn't want to compute it, it doesn't exist.
Do those images that to me look like flying craft, submarines, boats, do they look like that to you too?
Yes. Yes. Now, what they are, whether they're future pacing or they were, reaching into what we were going to have, or if they had that sort of thing in the distant past, who knows? But there's no way that they're superimposed hieroglyphic that make the impression of that sort of thing. The other thing is they're like 30 feet up. And so when you're looking at them, they look a couple of inches high.
Yeah.
It's difficult to make them out, and we've got some higher resolution pictures now, and we can look at them, and they're flying craft. They are. They look like that.
Oh, my God. Something happened a long time ago.
Something happened.
You're right. You're one of the first to say, maybe they were, looking into the future, and they were able to do that. Maybe they were remote viewers, but my gut tells me they were making images of things that they saw.
Fine.
Right there.
Fine, but the thing is that we are speculating. We don't really have them to say this is what it was.
No.
But we have people who have past life memories, cellular memory of various things. And I've taken an awful lot of people to Egypt who have past life memory, who will notice certain things, who will understand vibrational frequencies, harmonic resonance, how the water interacted and built a charge, and how the kind of power systems they have. And what's driven me since I'm 6 years old on this whole quest has been past life memories and cellular memory. So, certain things come up, and when it's wrong, it turns my gut inside out. It's so hard on me. And so I don't know what I know or why I know it. But then over the years and over research and doing a lot of field work and basically being a slave to this story all my life, I go and I find things, and then I go, and it unravels it for me. But there's so much misinformation. It's enough to make you crazy. People have all these stories about what it could have been, and that's why I think it's important to situate this inside a larger sociocultural context, inside a larger, farther chronology, like a longer period of time, and to get out of our own way and stop looking at it through our own patriarchal lenses.
Well, that's a good point. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some newly revealed reptilian beings that Carmen will talk with us about. I mean, absolutely riveting. We'll get into levitation, try to get her reaction from what Edward Leeds Scullin might have been doing down at Coral Castle as well. Her website, pyramidcode.com, linked up at coasttocoastam.com. If you haven't seen the images she's been talking about, just go to coasttocoastam.com. You might have to hit your refresh button, but there they are. We'll be back. And our special guest tonight is Carmen Boulter, as we talk about Egypt and some